Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to talk about definitely going to be one of the contenders for the best at-home scrypt ASIC. We do officially have the next gen coming from Elphapex. We're going to be talking about the just announced Elphapex DG2 Mini. We do have pictures of this thing. We have the official specs. That way we can kind of compare it to the others to see how this thing stacks up and to see if this thing is going to be worthwhile. We'll give our thoughts. If that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So they just announced this thing at one of the shows, and here it is. Okay, so immediately just glancing at the unit itself, couple of weird things, right? Number one, it's not going to be a liquid-cooled unit like the previous DG1 Home. This is going to be an air-cooled unit, which to me, that's definitely a pro, right? Bigger fan of less components to fail. It is much cheaper to replace these little fans versus an AIO. So definitely a fan there. The odd part though with the choice of the design is that it is extremely similar to the competition. Okay, it's pretty much just a silver version of the Volkminer D1 Mini. Okay, even looking at where like the switch is, where the power code goes in, where the Ethernet port is, like the design of the grills, the overall size of the unit, it is like a little bit too close, right? I mean, again, you can look at it here. It is vertical though, but this is the switch. This is the power input. This is, again, extremely similar. So definitely kind of an odd design choice. Maybe they should have done something to differentiate themselves a little bit more. Maybe make it a color that pops, show some RGB on there. Or just at least a slightly different design. Like, it's just kind of weird that they decided to go just so freaking close to it. Okay, so it's essentially just a silver version. One other thing immediately we can see is the addition of Wi-Fi, right? So that's definitely a benefit for these little home ASICs just because it gives you extreme versatility to put it wherever, especially because of the wattage. It does make it ideal as like a little room heater. So it does give you a lot more flexibility there, right? So with these at-home units, that's definitely a plus. So aside from the weird design choices, let's look at the specs. Okay, 2.4 gigahash, 530 watts, and the biggest factor, the efficiency. Okay, it's coming at 0.22 joules per megahash, which is kind of in line with the DG2 series, although it would have been nicer to see it on the more efficient side for it to be at that 0.20 level. That would have been definitely much more appealing. Just to kind of keep in line with the others, right? Because if we kind of compare the existing DG2 lineup, we can see that the DG2 Plus is coming in quite a bit more efficient. Okay, coming in at 0.19. Okay, and the regular DG2 coming in at 0.22. Okay, so it's based off of the efficiency of this guy. Since it's the same chips, they should have done whatever they did with the DG2 Plus to get it down to that level, just to kind of differentiate it from the competition more. Okay, just because, again, it is extremely similar specs to the Volkminer Mini. Okay, when we look at it, the D1 Mini, 2.2 gigahash, 500 watts, 0.23 joules per megahash. Extremely close. Again, for comparison, 2.4 to the 2.2, 500 watts on this guy versus the 530 there, and then 0.22 efficiency in comparison to the 0.23. So is it an overall better unit? Yes, tiny bit better. Okay, if they would have been able to get down to the 0.19 or even 0.20, at least at that point there's a 10% gain, there's something more to it, right? And that way it's also closer to some of the other competitors, which we'll get into here shortly. But this in reality is the most direct competitor. I mean, it's right up to there. Okay, so profitability wise, at Doge's current price, it's going to make you about $1.15 at a 10-cent kilowatt hour. And in comparison with the D1 Mini, $1.02. So again, very slight difference. Not a whole lot there. So it does give us a price point comparison. Okay, now we know the price to beat is $10.99. Okay, it needs to be somewhere in that range for it to be kind of competitive here. Okay, some other kind of things to factor. It's very likely that we're going to see a next-gen Volkminer D1 Mini. Okay, this thing has been out for quite a while now. The first batch was in January. This guy's just coming out now, right? In a sense, they're kind of late to the game in those regards. The reason we're saying it's extremely likely we're going to get a new unit here is because they have already announced their next gen scrypt ASICs, which are going to come out Q1 of 26. Okay, it's the Volkminer T3 coming in at 0.18 joules per mega hash. So with this unit, the popularity of the Volkminer T1 Mini, very likely we're going to see a second gen based off of this efficiency. Okay, so when they're going to announce it, when it's going to come out, if it comes out, we have no idea. But just something to kind of consider that, again, them kind of being late to the game and the efficiency being this high could be something kind of against them, right? So again, if they would have targeted that 0.20, which again, if all these units are using the same chips, they should have done whatever they did. So if it was more chips, clocked lower, even if it's less overall hash rate, again, the efficiency is kind of the big deal with these units. To an extent, right? So this is another big thing that we harp on. It's really dependent on your individual situation, but if you're a person who just wants to get one of these things just to get some exposure, your plan is to only have one of these little at-home units and kind of that's it, you have to really see how much you value the efficiency of that unit and if paying that premium is going to be worth it. Okay, the reason we're kind of saying it is even in comparing to the previous gen, the DG Home 1, in the grand scheme of things, percentage-wise, yes, it is a big difference in efficiency, but actual world usage, is that difference really worth it? And the reason we're saying that is the DG Home 1, for example, 2.1 gigahash, okay, so this guy is going to have about 10, 12, 13% more overall hash rate, but only for 100 more watts. I mean, do you necessarily value those 100 watts that much where it's going to be a unit that costs significantly more? That's going to be kind of up to you, and it's really dependent on the scale of things, right? So if you're only having one of these little units, yes, it's a difference, but it's a much bigger difference when you scale, right? If your plan is to get quite a few of these things, that's a little bit different. Or that's why it's such a big difference with those larger units, right? When you're dealing with 3,000 watts, 3,500 watts, almost 4,000 watts, it does add up quite significantly. But actual world usage, when you're comparing like this guy with the DG2 Mini, is those 100 watts and the 10% more hash rate you're going to get really worth the potential price difference? That has yet to be seen, right? We have to see what the actual price of this guy is going to be. Okay, but it's just something to consider. Again, percentage-wise, it's a big difference going from 0.3 to 0.22. Real-world hash rate difference, though, if you're only planning to get one unit, you have to see if that value is going to be worth it to you. Okay, so price is going to be a big thing. We want to see it priced somewhere around in this range, especially there's a very good chance that there's going to be a next gen of this thing. One thing to note here, though, and this is something I do value greatly with any ASIC, whether it's a little at-home ASIC, a big boy, whatever it is, and for me, that's longevity, durability, reliability. Okay, for me, that's extremely important, right? You can have the greatest specs all day, and it's like, this thing's going to do this, it's going to be this efficient, but if that company is a little bit sketch, you don't have full confidence in that company, what happens if it goes down on month 7 on a 6-month warranty? Okay, how is the repairability going to be? That's something you kind of have to ask, right? So at the end of the day, it can have all this profitability, it can have all this efficiency, but if you don't get that longevity out of that ASIC, you're losing a lot of the value. Okay, so for me, I would rather pay a slight premium to an extent for a unit that I believe is going to have more longevity. Okay, even if there's a slight difference in efficiency. Like for example, when we did a comparison, when this guy came out, we compared it with the DG Home 1, and my overall pick, and even to this day, would still honestly be the DG Home 1 just because I have much more confidence in this unit, lasting a lot longer, being more reliable, having parts availability there. Okay, I don't necessarily have that confidence currently with Volkminer. For any guys who have this unit, let us know how it's been doing. Overall, though, the consensus from talking to a lot of you guys seems to be that it's been holding up fairly well, right? A lot of you guys haven't really had issues with this guy, and a lot of you guys have had issues with that bigger unit, though, and that's where I'm still quite sketchy with them. Versus, in comparison with the Elphapex, so far the consensus seems to be extremely good, right? So I've had a DG Home 1 for going on almost a year now, 0 issues. I pretty much never have to reboot that thing. Extremely reliable. Okay, so for me, that's where I value things. If the price difference makes sense. Now, if this guy is gonna come in at freaking $1,800 or something, and this guy's 1,000, that's a little bit different. But if this guy even comes in a slight premium, let's say it's 1,200, 1,300 versus the price of this guy, I would probably go that route. Okay, so even though yes, the price of Mega Hash is better here, I value that definitely more, especially if it's a small premium. Okay, so again, we're gonna have to really wait for pricing info as well as shipping info. Okay, if this thing is shipping soon, which hopefully it is, I hate when they do these announcements and they don't just give us the full details, then definitely a potential unit, right? It's definitely appealing. The efficiency could be better, but it's there. Wattage, it's decent. It's extremely versatile. It has Wi-Fi. A lot of benefits there, but we really have to wait for that price. Because if this thing is going to be pushed out to like the batches of those DG2s down to somewhere in like Q1 of 26, I zero interest until that time comes, right? So we're gonna have to wait to see on those things. Again, I really wish they would just give us all the specs. It makes no sense when they do this crap. Some other competitors here, again, the really direct competitor is that Volk miner though, right? It's extremely similar, damn near the same thing, right? Other competitors you can consider like the L1 Pro, and this is where the price kind of has to make sense, right? Because realistically, if they're pricing this thing on the high end, like 1,500, 1,700, this is where it kind of doesn't make sense, and it potentially makes more sense to just take a risk here, just because again, you're going to get 3 times or approximately eyeballing about 3 times the hash rate. It's very similar efficiency, again, 0.23 to the potential 0.22, and this guy is 2,500 shipped. Okay, so something to consider there. And then an even bigger difference is when we do compare the next gen of the L3. Again, this isn't going to come out until 26 though, and this efficiency number of 0.18. Okay, so this is why we're saying that realistically it would have been much more impressive if this guy would have came in at 0.20. I mean, again, we're kind of being petty in a sense because, again, this low of a wattage, this small of a unit, it's not that big of a difference. But again, from the marketing factor, from the perspective factor, that's just something people kind of want to see. Okay, so with these Flu Miner units, though, is it a direct comparison? Not necessarily. These guys technically can be indoors depending on your electric situation, but these things are much, much beefier, right? This is a little more difficult to have indoors, especially if you're in a hot climate like myself down here in Florida. If you're somewhere cold in the wintertime, obviously a great use case here. Although still kind of on the high end, especially for a smaller room, right? 1,400 watts, and especially over here at 1,700 watts, and especially if they lowball these things on the wattage, which has been the case, these things are heftier, right? So having this big of a unit, it is going to generate a good amount of heat. Okay, so you definitely got to factor that in on what your use case is here. It's something you're gonna have outside of the house. That's a little bit different. This is a decent like in-betweener unit, in between like a small little 500-600 watter and a 3,500 to 4,000 watter. That's kind of where this is. So although yes, it kind of is an at-home unit, to me they're not necessarily direct comparisons, right? It's really going to be dependent on your use case, what your electric setup is. Are you on solar? Like, would this thing max it out? Are you looking for something smaller to kind of diversify? It's really going to be dependent on your use case, right? So they are kind of competitors, but not really. Okay, so something to factor in there. So although they didn't give us the price, it is definitely an interesting unit, right? Durability wise, I have much more confidence in Elphapex than the competitors, both of them. As a matter of fact, between Volk Miner, Flu Miner, I would definitely just have more overall confidence in the Elphapex unit. The big standout is going to be pricing, right? But again, if it's in the $1,000 range, definitely appealing. The shipping window is going to be the other thing, though, right? This thing would have to be shipping now in the next coming weeks. Maybe it's a November batch, hopefully. Maybe it's not, right? We're going to have to wait and see for the official confirmation there. But again, the fact that it's so close to this freaking Volk miner, this is an exact comparison, okay? So we know the price point that it needs to be. We know what it needs to beat. If it comes in excessive, like over 1,500 bucks, is it going to make more sense to go with something like this? Or just go overall with the Volk Miner Mini? Potentially the DG Home 1, right? If this thing goes down in price even more, still pretty viable, again, depending on your use case and your situation and how many units you're going to be running. Okay, so just different things to factor. We can't really give it a full thumbs up or thumbs down until we get the price point, but definitely an interesting unit. I do like the form factor. I do like air-cooled versus the liquid-cooled units. I like the Wi-Fi aspect, so there are things to like here. But again, at the end of the day, we're looking if this thing is going to make sense for profit, and it needs to be priced aggressively. Right? Again, for me, though, my overall pick, I have no interest in hardware at this point. Again, a year ago, sure, but at this point, it's not super appealing for me personally, right? Again, it depends on your exposure level, what you're doing. If you're a person who has solar, this is an appealing unit, just depending on the price point. But let me know in the comments, guys, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the design choice being so similar to the Volk Miner? That to me was just such a weird choice considering how like groundbreaking the DG Home 1 was. Kind of weird. Let me know what you think about that. Do you think it's a similar, coming from similar factories, at least on the case itself? Let me know what you think, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'm out.